General Hospital will teaser. When the devastating truth about Gio finally exploded into the open, Port Charles was thrust into emotional chaos. As if the entire town had been shaken by an invisible earthquake. The weight of long-buried secrets, carefully hidden behind strained smiles and polite conversations, shattered the fragile peace that had blanketed the community. At the epicenter of this storm stood Lulu, the woman who had fought with every ounce of strength to uncover a truth no one dared to face. She had chased shadows, pieced together fragments of the past, and defied countless warnings to protect the boy she believed deserved to know who he really was. But as the truth came roaring to the surface, Lulu was forced to confront the brutal reality that some revelations, no matter how justifiable, can carry unimaginable consequences. For Gio, the young man at the heart of this secret, the revelation of his true parentage was a cataclysmic event. Overnight, everything he believed about his identity was called into question. The people he trusted were suddenly strangers, and the life he had built began to feel like a cruel fabrication. Whispers followed him everywhere, soft but sharp, filled with speculation and pity. Judgments were made, alliances shifted, and Gio found himself isolated in a world that once embraced him. The emotional toll became unbearable. Without warning or farewell, he vanished from Port Charles, leaving behind a wake of heartbreak and confusion. His absence was not just physical, it created a void, an unspoken ache in the lives of those who had loved him. Especially in Dante, who had only just begun to understand what it meant to be a father. Dante's world unraveled with Joe's disappearance. In a matter of days, he had gained a son and lost him in the same breath. But more than the pain of Joe's absence was the searing betrayal he felt from Lulu. He could not comprehend how she could keep such monumental truths from him, how she could carry the burden of that knowledge alone, making decisions that should have never been hers to make in isolation. He replayed every interaction, every word, and every missed opportunity, his mind tormented by what could have been. In his eyes, Lulu was no longer the woman he had once adored. The fire that had once drawn him to her now seemed reckless, impulsive, even dangerous. He saw not a partner, but a mother whose obsession with uncovering the past had sacrificed their present. The rage within him simmered, boiling over in the form of bitter confrontation. Dante did not spare Brooklyn either. Her silence during her pregnancy, her failure to come forward, added another layer of betrayal to his pain. But it was Lulu who bore the full brunt of his fury. She had known the truth. She had chased it relentlessly. And still, she had chosen to exclude him. In a charged moment filled with accusations and heartbreak, Dante looked into her eyes and could no longer see the future he had once imagined with her. The woman who had once stood beside him through war zones and near-death experiences now felt like a stranger. The bond they had rebuilt so painstakingly after years apart crumbled in an instant. The words Dante spoke in that final confrontation were not screamed, but delivered with the cold clarity of someone whose hope had finally died. There was no room for forgiveness in his voice. Only a weary resignation. The loss of Sam had already hollowed out a part of his soul, but this betrayal, was a different kind of wound. It wasn't just the betrayal of love, but the betrayal of trust, of parenthood, of family. He had trusted Lulu with his heart, his future, and unknowingly, his child. Now, all of that had been torn away. As Lulu stood there, absorbing the weight of his disappointment, she realized that her victory in uncovering the truth had cost her everything else. The truth had a price, and she had paid for it with the collapse of the fragile foundation she and Dante had just begun to rebuild. In her mind, she had acted out of love. But in Dante's eyes, she had taken away his right to be a father on his own terms. And in that divergence of belief, their story, once filled with promise, came to a heartbreaking halt. Shattered by the crushing weight of guilt, Lulu did not remain in Port Charles to defend her actions or seek validation from those she had hurt. There were no tearful confessions. No desperate pleas for understanding. She did not throw herself at Dante's feet or knock on Laura's door in the middle of the night seeking solace. Instead, Lulu disappeared from the lives of everyone who knew her, vanishing into the shadows with only a single, unwavering mission burning in her heart, to find Gio before it was too late. She left behind the familiarity of home without ceremony, no luggage, no goodbyes, only a scribbled note tucked beneath a framed photo of her children. With nothing more than her determination and a heart heavy with regret, she chased down the faintest threads of Joe's trail. A suspicious banking transaction in a neighboring town. A grainy security camera still of a boy with Joe's posture boarding a cross-country bus. A phone number scribbled on the back of a receipt found in one of his discarded notebooks. These clues, insignificant to most, were Lulu's compass. They offered no promise, only possibility. But that was all she needed. Every mile Lulu traveled peeled back the layers of denial she had been clinging to. She began to see with painful clarity the magnitude of the hurt she had caused. This wasn't just about the truth being revealed, it was about the way she had done it. The avalanche she had triggered in Joe's world. What she had believed to be an act of maternal devotion now felt like a selfish crusade cloaked in righteousness. She hadn't just exposed a secret. She had shattered the very foundation of a young man's sense of self. She had ripped open wounds Gio hadn't even known existed and left him defenseless in the storm of identity, abandonment, and betrayal. In her mind, Lulu had always told herself that Gio deserved to know the truth, that she was giving him a gift, a history, a father. But now, as she moved from shelter to shelter, bus terminal to bus terminal, asking strangers if they had seen a boy with haunted eyes and a guarded smile, she realized Gio had not asked for any of this. She had made a decision for him, taken his agency, and when the fallout came, she had not protected him. She had lit the fuse and walked away, believing she was setting him free. Lulu didn't expect forgiveness. She didn't even believe she deserved it. All she wanted was a single moment, a chance to see her son again, even if that moment was steeped in fury and resentment. Even if Joe's eyes never softened. Even if his voice was filled with venom. She would accept it, welcome it, because it would mean he was still alive, still fighting, still somewhere in this vast, indifferent world. The thought of Gio lost and alone was more than she could bear. She clung to the hope that she could find him, not to reclaim him, but to let him know he mattered, that she was sorry. That no matter how much he hated her, she would never stop searching. Back in Port Charles, Dante returned each night to a house that now felt hollow, stripped of its warmth and purpose. The silence pressed in on him like a vice, making even the ticking of the clock feel accusatory. The photographs on the mantel, once cherished reminders of love and laughter, now seemed like cruel echoes of a life that had slipped through his fingers. Olivia tried to comfort him with soft words and home-cooked meals, but nothing could reach the hollow place where Gio once existed. There was no solace. Only the ache of absence and the sting of betrayal. Dante, despite his anger, could not stop thinking about Gio. He followed every lead that came across the police scanner. Checked hospital admissions under false names, and stayed up nights scrolling through online message boards for runaways. He told no one, not even Olivia, that he was doing this. Pride kept his mouth shut, but a father's love kept his hope alive. As much as he wanted to hate Lulu for what she'd done, the truth was more complicated. He knew she had acted from a place of love. Twisted and misguided as it may have been. And a part of him, the part that once believed in their future, still longed for her to walk back through that door with Gio by her side. In the quiet hours, Dante found himself dreaming of the life he had imagined, weekend barbecues, soccer games, Sunday mornings with pancakes and cartoons. A life where Gio called him dad without hesitation. A life where Lulu stood beside him, their shared past finally behind them. But dreams were fragile things, and the truth had shattered his. Now, he lived in limbo. Between what was and what could never be, with only the flickering hope that somewhere out there, his son was safe. Neither Lulu nor Dante could undo what had been done. But across the miles, in different corners of the world, both held on to the same silent prayer, that one day, Gio would stop running. That one day, he would look back, not with forgiveness, perhaps, but with understanding. And that somehow, through the pain, a fractured family might begin to piece itself back together. On a rain-soaked night in a nameless city far from the familiar streets of Port Charles, Lulu finally caught sight of the silhouette she had been chasing in her restless dreams, the hunched shoulders, the hesitant footsteps. The quiet figure standing alone beneath the flickering light of a dilapidated bus station awning. There was no certainty, no confirmation beyond the instinctive pull in her chest, but she knew. She knew it was Gio. The years, the pain, and the distance had changed him, had hardened his edges, but to a mother. No disguise of time could mask the son she once carried in her heart long before she knew his name. She didn't call out, not with her voice. She didn't break the silence with desperate pleas or declarations of love. Instead, she stood still, letting the rain soak through her coat and into her bones. As if it could wash away the weight of everything left unsaid. In her heart, she whispered his name, again and again, a silent prayer against the pounding storm. But Gio didn't turn. He didn't rush into her arms like the countless dreams that had haunted her nights. He remained still, distant, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge the woman watching him from the shadows. And yet, for Lulu, that moment was everything. He was alive. That singular truth broke her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, indistinguishable from the rain, not out of salvation or redemption, but from the overwhelming relief that he was still out there, breathing, moving, surviving. She had feared she would find nothing, an empty lead, another dead end, or worse. But here he was. Not broken beyond recognition, not lost beyond repair. Just gone, for now. And that meant there was still time, time to hope, time to change. Time to earn the chance to one day look into his eyes and be seen again not as the woman who hurt him, but as the mother who never stopped searching. Lulu didn't approach him. She didn't chase the closure she wasn't ready for. Instead, she turned and walked away, leaving behind only the imprint of her silent tears on the pavement and the fragile knowledge that her son still walked this earth, with nothing else to offer but that moment. She returned to Port Charles, empty-handed and world-weary. When she finally faced Dante again, it was not with the desperation of someone seeking forgiveness, but with the calm stillness of a soul that had traveled through the wreckage of her choices and emerged without illusions. Her eyes met his, steady and unflinching. She didn't beg for reconciliation. She didn't speak of their past or ask for another chance. All she wanted was peace, the quiet acknowledgement of shared sorrow without the need for blame. Dante didn't respond with accusations or anger. The fire in him had long burned out, leaving behind only a quiet ache. He didn't embrace her, didn't speak of dreams lost or paths divided. He simply lowered his gaze, like a man mourning a piece of himself that would never return. There were no grand declarations, no bitter farewells. What stood between them now wasn't hatred, but a profound and solemn understanding, that some wounds do not close, they simply become a part of who you are. There, in the hush of their reunion, amid the heavy silence of all they had lost, something else began to take root, not reconciliation, not yet, but something quieter. Acceptance. The understanding that they were no longer the same people who had once fallen in love, nor even the versions of themselves who had tried to rebuild a future together. They were now simply two parents connected by pain, by love, and by the hope that one day their son would find his way back, not because they asked him to, but because he chose to. Joe's story did not end with his disappearance. That rainy night at the bus station was not the final chapter, but merely the prologue to a longer, harder journey, a journey not only of self-discovery, but of healing. The road ahead would not be easy. It would be filled with questions he alone would have to answer, battles he would have to fight without the shelter of the family that failed to protect him when it mattered most. But he was no longer invisible. He was no longer a secret. And in that visibility, painful though it was, lay the first step towards something more. In the quiet corners of Port Charles, life continued. The town, scarred by its own collection of secrets and regrets, pulsed forward with the steady rhythm of births and losses, celebrations and heartbreaks. But beneath the surface, there was a sense of waiting for healing, for return, for resolution. Dante and Lulu went about their days separately now, each marked by the ghosts of what had been. They spoke little, but they shared something deeper than words, the enduring hope that one day, Gio would come home, not to the version of family they once tried to build, but to something new. Something earned. Something real. Until then, they would carry their grief like a shared language. Not to punish themselves, but to remember the boy who changed everything. And the love that refused to fade, even when everything else had.